Coming to you live from Baldwin Wallace University in Greater Cleveland. Welcome inside our coverage, the first round of the 2020 NCAA Championship Tournament. Women's basketball set here in Berea, where the host university, Baldwin Wallace, against the Fords from Haverford College out of the Centennial, champions out of Greater Philadelphia. I'm Brendan Gulick alongside Cole McDaniel. Really excited for our contest here tonight. The Yellow Jackets are hosting the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2008. They've had an incredible season, 26-2. They've won 12 games in a row and 18 of their last 19. This team last year, Cole, won an opening round game on a buzzer beater, but they are hungry for a deep tournament run here in 2020.
Well, Brendan, there's a reason why the Yellow Jackets are the 9th-ranked team in the country. They've put together a fantastic season. When the only two games you lost to is once to your crosstown rival on the road because you had a tough shooting fourth quarter, and then at Wartburg as well in December. I mean, they put together a great resume. They've been an outstanding team all year, led by several seniors.
Yeah, it's a senior-heavy group for sure. Casey Hughes, Riley Schill, Kara Marshall, Hannah Fecht, and Tiffany Bentler. Those 5 young ladies have all played more than 100 games in their careers, and they are a big reason, but certainly not the only reason why the Yellow Jackets are in this position. But they drew a tough first-round opponent, in my opinion. The Haverford Fords, the number 2 defense in the country. They don't score a lot of points, Cole, but they only give up 46 points per game. It is truly one of the elite defenses in Division III women's college basketball, number 2 out of 450 schools, and the Yellow Jackets are anticipating tonight to be a tough game.
Yeah, and the Yellow Jackets need to do what they did early against John Carroll, where they started hot, then they got out to that early lead and made it hard for John Carroll to get back into the game.
Jackets in gold, the Fords in black, and the 2020 NCAA tournament is underway. The winner of this game plays tomorrow night at 6 o'clock in this gymnasium against the University of Chicago, who beat LaRoche in the first game of the day 80-57. Riley Schill back up top. Kara Marshall misses the 3 to open it up. Haverford will give you their starting lineups first. Hannah Knoll, a senior forward out of Lawrenceville, New Jersey. Juliana Clark, a junior guard from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Nyla Robinson, junior guard from Fords, New Jersey. Megan Furch, a good senior forward out of Hazlitt, New Jersey. And the Centennial Conference Player of the Year, senior guard Anna Sophia Capizzi out of Chevy Chase, Maryland. Capizzi is a fabulous scorer, more than 19 points per game. She is dangerous from lots of different places on the floor, and she shoots the 3 at almost 40%. For the Yellow Jackets, who are in their gold tops, senior guard Casey Hughes out of Springboro as Riley Schill steals it away. Riley, a senior, she puts it in and one and starts the tournament on a high note.
Well, and one thing to make clear is we mentioned Haverford is a good defensive team, one of the best in the country, but the Yellow Jackets are fantastic on defense too. They do a great job of switching off, keeping shuffling from side to side, and also very quick hands. You saw it there with the steal.
Schill out of Elyria Catholic High School on the west side of Cleveland puts the first one in. Kara Marshall, a senior from Archbishop Hoban down in Akron. Hannah Fecht, senior guard from the greater Columbus area in Hilliard. And Megan Scheibelhut, also from Elyria Catholic, the 6'2 post player. Casey Hughes steals one away. Jackets have a nice crowd on hand, especially considering that it's spring break week here in Berea, and a lot of students have stuck around for this one. Lilly Edwards heads to the scores table. She was last year's Ohio Athletic Conference Freshman of the Year, and she hit the buzzer beater game-winning shot in the opening game of the tournament last year against RIT. After a miss, here comes Capizzi. She is electrifying. The Fords led by 12th-year head coach Bobby Morgan, who's done a tremendous job with this group. They are back in the tournament for the 3rd consecutive season. Capizzi scores.
Yeah, and quite the coaching matchup, as you mentioned, Morgan, but then also you have Coach Sherry Hare, who earlier this year hit 600 career wins, in her 30th season. She's done a lot for basketball as well.
What a model of consistency Coach Hare has been. 20 wins a year on average for 30 seasons. One of the winningest coaches in Division III women's basketball, active and historically. Hannah Fecht gets going. She had a great OAC championship game. 7 of 7 from the floor, 5 of 5 from behind the three-point line for the fifth-year senior. Jackets have a 5-2 lead. Capizzi picks up her dribble. This is Juliana Clark raising from a long way out. Somehow Hannah Knoll snuck in there, untouched, but Casey Hughes pulls away a steal. Haverford 23-4 on the season. Megan Scheibel-Hutt, easy bucket. Haverford mentioned earlier that they really pin their hats on the defensive end of the floor. They're seeing some pesky defense here. They also are among the nation's most disciplined teams. They only average about 11 fouls per game. That is third in the country. They really make you work for it.
Yeah, and the Yellow Jackets on defense right now really making them work.
Furch traveled. All right, couple of changes on both sides as Hannah Knoll exits. Cortland Morris, a freshman forward from Bound Brook, New Jersey, is in for Knoll. And the Yellow Jackets have 2 new players out there. Mentioned Lilly Edwards and Gabby Garrett also checking in. Gabby, a junior from Bishop Watterson High School down in Columbus. Good defensive stance there from Morris. 6:20 left in the opening quarter. Jackets lead 7-2. Casey Hughes doesn't get it to roll in from the front of the rim. Good effort and good defense. Baldwin Wallace in the NCAA tournament for the 2nd consecutive season and for the 14th, check that 15th time in program history. Riley Schill called for the foul. This is a special group of seniors for BW as Izzy Andrews and Megan Hensel check in. But while it's important and appropriate to spotlight those 5 seniors who've been such a big piece of the Yellow Jackets, they play some young players in very meaningful minutes, and they've played well this year.
Yeah, and their depth is so crucial. And for those who haven't seen the Yellow Jackets and are tuning in for the first time for this, Coach Sherry Hare likes to go to her bench. She likes to sub a lot, so expect to see fresh legs on the floor.
Capizzi called for the travel. Yeah, beyond those who start, Lilly Edwards, Hensel, Sydney Diedrich, Gabby Garrett, Sydney Snyder, Izzy Andrews, all averaging double-digit minutes per game. So you're right, they will use quite a good rotation.
You see about 11 or 12 deep each game.
Most nights, no doubt. Approaching the halfway point of the first quarter. Hughes to her right, and she traveled with it. Her feet kind of got caught underneath her as she tried to shoot. Haverford off to a rough start on the offensive end. 4 turnovers in the first 5 minutes. But they're only down by 5 points as Kara Marshall returns. And Casey Hughes grabs a chair.
Yeah, and Karen Marshall was on the all-tournament team for the OAC tournament that just wrapped up, as well as then we mentioned Hannah Fecht in that brilliant game she had offensively, a perfect offensive game versus John Carroll. She was the tournament MVP.
This is Raina Gully passing off to Capizzi. Circling to her right. Gabby Garrett pulls it right out of her pocket. Garrett dribbling left-handed up the floor, finds Edwards. Lilly not called for a travel. A little bit of contact. The referees let it go. She scores her first basket, 9-2.
Well, Gabby Garrett on the defensive end with the textbook steal. So good job by Edwards to finish that one off and get the 2-point swing as well.
Lobbed up top, controlled here by Clark. Furch back underneath, and a whistle as Morris went up with it. Well, this certainly isn't a Haverford team that only relies on Anna Sophia Capizzi. Juliana Clark, Megan Furch, both good offensive weapons, but beyond those 3, nobody has more than 5 points per game. So if you can find a way to slow down Capizzi, Clark, and Furch, more often than not, opponents have found success this year. 9-2 at our first media timeout. The Jackets by 7. We'll step aside briefly here in Berea. Back at Baldwin Wallace University, we didn't have a chance to introduce our referees to you before the start of the game. Eric Pethel is our head referee. Caitlin Tortoris and Steve Lackdoff are his official, assistant referees. And we want to wish congratulations to all three of them on their appointments for this evening's match. They were also selected based on their outstanding work throughout the course of the regular season. Good foul shot for Cortland Morris, playing in her first career NCAA tournament game. And Morris hits them both. Last year, Haverford found some early success in the NCAA tournament. They won a first-round contest before they bowed out in the second round of the tournament. I'd like to go a little deeper this year if they can, as Hensel misfires from 3. Haverford was 22-7 last year. They routed Rosemont 80-37 in the opening game of the tournament last year before they ran into a very good Tufts team that went back to the national semifinals, losing to the Jumbos by 6. So Haverford is tournament tested over the years. They've got some good seniors. And the Yellow Jackets know that this is not an easy opening round game. Sydney Diedrich comes on for the first time. Hannah Fecht returns. Juliana Clark will inbound from in front of BW's bench.
Yeah, and despite being a big, Sydney Diedrich can step out and shoot the 3. She also had a good performance, put up double digits in that OAC championship win.
Lobbed into the low post, mishandled, and Hannah Fecht grabs it. Fecht only played in 4 games last year. Steps back for 3, one of the all-time BW greats from behind the three-point line. Misses that one. But because she only played in 4 games, she did not lose a year of eligibility. Missed the rest of the season with a left wrist injury. Came back fully healthy this year and decided to stick around for a 5th year of school. That 3 ball from Capizzi missed well off to the left-hand side. Jackets lead the game 9-4, 3 minutes left first quarter. Anyways, you just kind of get the sense that Hannah feels like this whole season has been sort of 2 different mindsets. One of them is unfinished business because she wanted so badly to be a part of the team last year when they made their tournament run. But she also knows that this has kind of been some icing on the cake this year as Riley Schill scores a strong bucket. And I really think Hannah is playing with a certain level of joy and looseness offensively that's helped her succeed. Look at Riley Schill pick this one up right under the basket. She gets 2 more, and it's 13-4 BW.
Yeah, and Riley Schill started this game really well. And one thing is, despite being a guard, she uses her body so well down in the low block, and you saw it with the finish before she got that steal and finished that other one off.
9-point lead early on for the number 9 ranked team in America. Capizzi, tough player, tough looking shot. Almost went home, but not quite. Haverford continues what has been a really frustrating offensive game. That one's good from Hannah Fecht, and it forces a Ford's timeout. Bobby Morgan's team is down 16-4. They've already turned it over 8 times in the first quarter. The Yellow Jackets by a dozen, 8 minutes in. Haverford out of the timeout, trying to settle down offensively. 1 of 4 from the floor, Cole, and 8 turnovers. It's turned into 9 BW points, make it 9 turnovers in less than 9 minutes. Diedrich, a long open three! 19-4.
This is very reminiscent of the last game the Yellow Jackets played versus John Carroll. First quarter, they just went off from the field, and it's hard to make a comeback when somebody goes up this big early.
But it's a long game.
Yep.
You certainly can't get complacent. And Effect grabs the defensive board. Hannah almost had her pocket picked. You know, BW came out in the quarterfinal round of the OAC tournament in a really poor form early as Casey Hughes drills an open triple. 22-4.
What a start to this first quarter. Still a minute left, and a huge lead for the Yellow Jackets.
And just to wrap up that point, they really played poorly in the first round of the OAC tournament. But from that point on, they have looked unstoppable. And it's a good start again tonight. 22-6 now. There's a little turnaround basket for Megan Furch. Hughes threw it off of Maddie Gallick out of bounds. Gallick, a senior from Gillette, New Jersey. Jackets make a change. Sydney Snyder comes in, replacing Megan Hensel. Final 27 seconds left in the opening period. About 5-second difference between game and shot clock here. Snyder. Hughes open with a hand in her face. Not quite. 10 seconds to go in the first quarter. Another loose ball, another turnover. The 10th Haverford giveaway in the first quarter. Fact.
Got to go.
It's off in time, but doesn't drop. What a start. 16-point lead for the Yellow Jackets. 9 of 16 from the floor. Haverford 2 of 6 shooting. They've turned it over 10 times compared to just once for Baldwin Wallace. Second quarter action when we come back. The Yellow Jackets at home, so far so good here in the first round of the tournament. What a start to the game for the Baldwin Wallace defense. Their offense has done a fine job, 9 of 16 from the floor, Cole, but forcing 10 turnovers in the first 10 minutes. Haverford right now is all out of sorts, and they have to find a way to settle down here before this gets out of control. If you're the Fords, you've still got 30 minutes a game. There's no reason to panic yet, but you've also got to put this first quarter behind you as Casey Hughes is called for the foul.
Well, and if you can learn anything from the first game, I mean, when LaRoche started to fall behind a little bit more, they started forcing up some shots. As for Haverford, you have a lot of the game still going on. Just run your offense, take your time, try to get smart shots and get back in. No need to start forcing anything early.
Winner of this game plays the University of Chicago tomorrow night for a spot in the Division III Sweet 16 next weekend. Turnaround, Furch kicks it out of bounds, back to BW. Other teams that have advanced today, since there are so many games, I won't give you all the scores, but other teams that you might want to keep your eye on along the way. Illinois Wesleyan, Chicago, Oglethorpe, NYU, Loris, Christopher Newport as Snyder's 3 misfires. George Fox and Smith College have all already won their contests across the country in the opening round games today. Capizzi, boy, they have locked down on her quite a bit. Clark gave it off, high off the window, came off awkwardly. Furch couldn't do it.
Well, and that's what you mentioned. They have to lock down on Capizzi if the Yellow Jackets want to win this game, but that's going to be a huge thing in stopping her.
Casey Hughes flings it up there and is perhaps a bit sarcastic with the smile because it didn't quite drop for her. Meanwhile, Cortland Morris comes back on for Haverford. Megan Hensel back for BW. I know Morris is only a freshman, but I like the way she plays defense.
Right. Haven't seen the Yellow Jackets at the line really much so far in this game, but just a reminder, they are a great free throw shooting team. That's something that's huge for the tournament. Shoot about 77% as a team.
Yeah, and out of the 450 teams in Division III women's basketball, they are third in the country as a free throw shooting team. Casey Hughes hits both of those. Jackets offensively right around 72 points per game. They allow less than 56, which means they are top 25 nationally in scoring margin of better than 16 a night. Certainly a good three-point shooting team, but they've played very good defense here in the second half of the year. They got a big wake-up call when they played Wartburg, a terrific team at Wartburg just before the new year. Snyder's called for the foul. The Jackets were not locked in on the defensive end at all against Wartburg, and they got drilled by 31 points against a very good Wartburg Knights team. And I think that served as a stark reminder that you can't win games based on talent. You have to go out and play at a high level.
Right. And always good to learn those lessons early on as well.
Capizzi to her right, tucks it, and misses the layup short. Haverford faithful begging for a foul. It doesn't come. Snyder was hip for hip with her. 24-6. Hensel sees an opening and through the left lane, scores with a right hand.
Yeah, Megan Hensel is great off the bench always. She usually puts up some good points. I mean, she, especially down the end of this run in the regular season and the tournament as well, she's been crucial off the bench.
That's a good pass from Clark underneath, or I should say to Clark underneath, but a wild shot. And Gabby Garrett travels with it. BW with their second turnover. Lilly Edwards, Kara Marshall both back in. We'll give Haverford a little credit from the turnover perspective. They've calmed down a bit, having only turned it over once in the second quarter. But they dug a massive hole early on. Fords have not scored since the quarter break. Capizzi trying to change that. Cutting, slicing her way through, missed it short. Again, the Centennial Conference Player of the Year, Anna Sophia Capizzi. So far, not effective yet tonight. Hensel open for three, and it's off the front.
Good ball movement, though, from the Yellow Jackets, able to find that open shot.
Capizzi on Edwards, short again.
Yeah, and Capizzi's just forcing it right now and not getting much to go. And, of course, the fans want a foul, but the Yellow Jackets just playing some tight defense on her.
That's off the Fords, out of bounds. Both teams making a couple changes. Caroline Anderson, Maddie Gallick, both back in for Haverford. The Jackets, it's Andrews, Hensel, Marshall, Edwards, and Hughes. Both teams a little more quiet here in the second quarter offensively. Jackets are shooting 56%. 5 to shoot for Marshall. Kara tried another crossover. That one didn't go in. Not quite as pretty as the one that went viral a couple weeks ago. Millions of views nationwide for Marshall. She's had a great senior campaign as Edwards plays good defense. And Lilly called for carrying the ball. Usually you want your point guard dribbling it up the floor.
Yeah, and that's usually why. And Lilly Edwards, an outstanding talent, an outstanding player, but just got caught with that one. I think she was trying to start the break, was looking for the pass, and completely forgot about the ball for a quick second.
A little too far ahead of herself. Jackets by 20. Haverford still hasn't scored since the end of the first quarter. And it doesn't change here. Goodness gracious. Morris from point-blank range couldn't put one in. And now Andrews, freshman out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. You hope that BW doesn't lose their sense of urgency here just because they have a 20-point lead. Lilly Edwards cuts through the key and scores. Haverford is certainly showing why they're a good defensive team. They're making some of these shots a little more difficult on BW, but the Jackets have gotten off to a great start, and it's another turnover, the 12th in transition. Hughes to Marshall. Kara hits the ground hard, no foul. Good block.
Yeah, good strong physical play, but again, the Yellow Jackets just doing really well defensively, but Haverford, the communication is off.
I mean, this is unbelievable. Again, Haverford averages 13 turnovers per game. They've got 13 turnovers in 15 minutes tonight. The forwards have to take a deep breath. They're still stuck on 6 points. Edwards. Hughes finds Marshall. Good mid-air adjustment.
A nice cut there from Hughes, and then another cut down the baseline for Marshall. Good pass and a very nice finish. The seniors hooking up again.
It's an 8-0 run for the Jackets. Megan Furch made a layup with 41 seconds left in the first quarter. Those were the last Haverford points. This is Furch turning around and scoring off the window, ending a scoring drought of more than 6 minutes. 30-8. Winner gets University of Chicago tomorrow night. And a good call. Edwards traveled with it. Schill, Garrett, Bentler, and Diedrich will all return in just a moment. But we've got a timeout on the floor. This has been a pretty impressive NCAA tournament debut for the Yellow Jackets in 2020. They lead 30-8 with 4:15 left in the first half. Back in Berea, where the Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets have a 30-8 lead in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. And frankly, it's been a pretty balanced effort when you look at some of the Yellow Jacket scorers. I mean, Riley Schill's got 7 points to lead the way. Hughes and Fecht have 5 each. Edwards with 4. It hasn't been any one player going off. The difference in the game is what BW's done defensively. Anna Sophia Capizzi 1 for 6 shooting the ball. They've got to get her going, Haverford does, if they want to get back in this.
Yeah, they do, and the Yellow Jackets are just being physical with her, and she's forcing up some shots and just not able to get it even close to the rim. She's been struggling.
Furch has 4 points. Morris and Capizzi with 2 each. Capizzi crosses over Riley Schill. A chance for Clark. Yikes, not even close, doesn't hit the rim. And you're sensing a little bit of frustration as you look over at the Ford's bench. Kind of get the feeling that the body language over there is more negative than they would like. Although I can imagine it's hard to mentally stay positive when things haven't gone well. The Fords have turned it over 14 times, and they're 2 of 13 shooting it in the entire half. Fecht for 3, nope. And Garrett commits the foul.
Yeah, and we'll see how the next 3.5 minutes go, but I have a feeling that the Haverford locker room's not one you'd want to be in at halftime if this continues this way.
Well, I would imagine Coach Harrer is trying to get her team to stay locked in here at the end of this first half. Don't give Haverford any reason to believe, if you're a Yellow Jacket fan, that they could make a second half comeback, because anything can happen in the tournament. This could easily reverse in the second half. Little turnaround, float up over the rim. Morris missed it, and it's out of bounds off the Fords. Baldwin Wallace has 18 points in the paint, so they've gotten to the rim quite a bit as Megan Hensel returns for an effect. Of course, you mentioned it earlier, Sherry Harrer with her 600th career win back on February 1st. Did it against Muskingum, whose coach Aaron Eaton is a former assistant to Coach Harrer just a couple seasons ago. Riley Schill puts one in. 32-8, 9 for Riley. And while it was certainly one of the bright spots of the season, it was not the only highlight of the year. Jackets played Marietta at home and tied the school record for three-pointers made in a game. They buried 16 threes in one night. That was a memorable night for sure, but they were often at more than 10 threes per contest. Diedrich hit an early three. She's back in there. 2:10 to play in the first half. Diedrich driving, in trouble. Found her own miss. That one's thrown back where Capizzi picks it up. Tiffany Bentler got enough of the ball, and then a foul called against Haverford. The Fords are furious, but frankly, Cole, I think it was the right call. I think Bentler got all ball.
I agree with you. Bentler reached in, and that's one of those things where Capizzi has just been going up through the contact, but Bentler, she swiped at the ball, and she definitely got the contact on it. You could tell from the spin. So, I mean, Capizzi just, again, struggling around the rim at the moment.
And look, in the interest of being neutral, I think the referees have done a good job today because they've called some really tight traveling violations on BW that sometimes you might see let go. They called a couple of fouls on the Jackets that ordinarily you might not see called, but it certainly is disappointing and increasingly more frustrating when offensively things aren't going your way and it feels like you're not getting certain calls. The Fords are 3 for 18 in the first half as Casey Hughes scores. 3 for 18 with 14 turnovers. They barely have more missed shots than turnovers.
Yeah, and the big thing is Haverford has a good defense, and you're seeing them move their feet. The one thing I'm noticing that's the difference between them and the Yellow Jackets right now is active hands. The Yellow Jackets have had active hands, but have been swiping at the ball and stealing it. Haverford, not really.
Think about it this way. With that 15th turnover, that's 33 total possessions, and 30 of them, they've come away empty-handed.
Yeah.
You can't win a tournament game if you do that.
No, not at all.
Jackets give one back there. BW shooting 52%, and they just turned it over for the 5th time here in the first half. 1:20 left before halftime. Clark working with Gallick up top. Now back to Juliana. To the right side, and she gets it.
And that's a good drive, and that's a good mid-range finish. Hannafek tried to get over, tried to swat it, just couldn't get up high enough.
Morris giving Feck no room to shoot. So Diedrich will take one, and she hits the rafters on the way down. 2 3 balls for Sydney Diedrich, and the Jacket lead is 27.
That's a pretty 3-ball, and nothing but nylon there. But yeah, you're right. Quite the arc on that as she to get over the close defender.
Morris gets it. 37-12. Morris with 4. 30 seconds left before halftime. And the brown and gold faithful here in Berea are breathing a little easier than you normally would in an NCAA tournament game. What a first half. Shot clock and game clock are about 4.5 seconds apart. 7 to shoot. Andrews, 2 to shoot. And it's blocked. Good job by Morris. There's 4.6 on the clock here. So Haverford will have the last shot. You would think. Capizzi returns. 1 for 8 in the game. Keep your eye on number 21 in black You don't want to let her burn you right before the end of the second quarter. Up the floor, Nyla Robinson to her right. Robinson fires it off the side of the backboard. Well, if that wasn't an exclamation point, I'm not sure what was. 37-12, the Jackets by 25 going into the locker room.
Yeah, the Jackets, they came to play. They're not messing around. They want to make some damage in this tournament. And when they're hosting, and they were so excited to host this, you knew that they wanted to not only win this first game, but they also want to win tomorrow. But today's business is today, and they came out firing quickly and did exactly what they've done in their last couple games. First quarter was brilliant.
Riley Schill, 9 points, 4 of 4 shooting. Casey Hughes has 7. Sydney Diedrich with 6, including a couple of threes. Hannah Fecht has 5. Lilly Edwards with 4. Marshall, Hensel, and Scheibelhut all have 1 basket apiece. Haverford led by Morris and Furch, who have 4 points apiece. Juliana Clark, 1 for 4, shooting at 2 points. Anna Sophia Capizzi, just 1 for 8, 2 points for her. The 2 leading scorers for Haverford have combined for 4 points. They average almost 32 a game combined on the season. So it's halftime. The Yellow Jackets, thanks to a great offensive first half, 52%, and a great defensive first half with 15 forced turnovers, lead Haverford 37-12. We'll come back with the start of the second half here shortly. First round coverage of the NCAA tournament continues in about 13 minutes on BWYellowJackets.com. Welcome back to Baldwin Wallace University, where it's just about to start the third quarter. Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets with a rather impressive first half against the Fords, the champions out of the Centennial from Haverford College. 37-12 at the break. Jackets all over Haverford. They have limited Haverford's best offensive player to 1 for 8 from the floor. The Jackets shot 56%, and they forced 15 first-half turnovers for the Fords. Cole, you sit there and you try to find things to pick apart. I'm not sure the Yellow Jackets could have done anything better in the first half, but you have to find a way, I suppose, to not get complacent and say, look, let's go back out there and get back after it again, because Haverford is a very good team, and you don't want to let them have any life.
Yeah, I think maybe the only things they could have done better is those 2 or 3 needless travels. I mean, that's about it for the Yellow Jackets. That first quarter was pretty lights out. They came out firing early. I think it's one of those things where the Yellow Jackets just hope to come out of the halftime break performing like they did in the first quarter. As for Haverford, again, just need to chip away, play good defense, make the Yellow Jackets make some misses, and start getting some buckets as well.
Starting 5 out there for the Jackets to start the quarter, and it looks like Haverford's starting 5 are out there as well. Haverford looks a little bit more locked in on the defensive end. Scheibelhut turns around, banks one home from the middle of the paint. Megan Scheibelhut.
That's something we don't see from Scheibelhut too often. She's usually out there just to win the tip, get some boards for these seniors around her, but a good turnaround jumper. Only averages just over 2 points per game.
Milo Robinson gives to Capizzi, and a foul on Casey Hughes. That's Casey's second. Inbound comes to Robinson. Fords have to just take it one possession at a time after arguably their worst offensive half of the season. Capizzi, great cut to the basket, and had effect, forced her to miss the shot.
Yeah, and hand effect showing off the athleticism, and that was great help defense.
Scheibelhut into the corner. Fecht prevents it from going out of bounds. Casey Hughes slices and dices her way to an easy 2. 9 points for Casey.
That's a sweet move. Casey Hughes loves just scooting to that right hand and just scooping it up and in. She really does that to perfection, and she did it again there.
41-12. Jackets last year won the opening round game on a buzzer beater and then lost to Messiah on their home floor in South Central PA. This year they earned the right to host. That one got caught up in the rim. Fecht able to poke it away to Marshall. Hold on a second. They reset the shot clock, and it shouldn't have. The ball just got caught up in the net, but I don't think ever hit the rim. And they're going to put 21 on the shot clock here. Good job by our officiating crew. Garrett re-enters here. Schill on the inbounds. Beats Robinson off the dribble. Protected the ball nicely, but didn't finish. Capizzi back up top. 1 for 10 offensively. Hannah Zoll, not quite.
Just a lot of tough contested shots when they've been able to get those shots off. And Haverford, I think they're doing a better job working it inside, but it's been tough work.
Kara Marshall fouled on the way to the bucket.
And Kara Marshall shifty. She's got those moves. Saw that little hesitation, that stutter step, and then drove to the lane and got hacked, and now Marshall gets to step to the line. And we mentioned earlier, she had a great OAC tournament, and she's still continuing to play well.
I want to throw a little spotlight here on Lilly Edwards. Lilly was the OAC Freshman of the Year last year and was all-conference honorable mention again this season as a sophomore. And she hasn't started a single game this year. And I think it speaks to Lilly's maturity. She is such an impressive and mature young lady, and frankly, she is a fierce competitor. But willing to take on the role of coming off the bench because it's been better for the team as Capizzi got fouled by Fecht on a long three-point shot. I've been continually impressed with Lilly in her role this year, embracing, being one of the better players on the team, but not being part of this starting group, and finding ways to still be super impactful and earning the respect of a lot of the other players and coaches around the conference.
I think that's one of the things that's unique about the Yellow Jackets is, all these teams in the tournament, most all of them have very talented starting lineups, starting groups. But when you get to the bench and you get, with the Yellow Jackets, you get a talent like Lilly Edwards coming off of the bench, and you get some of the other bench help, that's where the Yellow Jackets have really separated themselves from some other teams this season.
Baldwin Wallace went 17-1 in conference play. One of the better seasons in program history. They've never gone undefeated in the league, but Sherry Harrer's team was ready to rock in conference play this year as Haverford bobbles it and loses it out of bounds. 43-15. If the Jackets can hang on to win, and look, there's still 17 minutes left in regulation between the third and fourth quarters, but if they can hang on, they're going to have a tough customer in the Maroons from Chicago. Good save by Bettler. Chicago is still in the building watching this one closely. Riley Schill. Couple of tough moves, and she slips it over the side of the rim. What Riley lacks in size, she makes up for in heart.
Again, good post moves for a guard, and she's just very talented down on the low block and with her back to the basket.
Only 5'6", but perhaps the strongest player on the team. Just maybe. Another Ford's turnover, 45-15. Meanwhile, the Ohio Athletic Conference only got one team in the tournament this year. Ohio Northern and John Carroll both were left out, and some projections had them making the field as an at-large. So perhaps a little disappointing for the OAC this year in that regard. On the men's side, there were two schools that got in for the OAC. Mount Union is hosting the opening weekend. They were conference champs this year. And the Marietta Pioneer men were back in, but they had a tough day today. Tiffany Bentler back up underneath, missed it. And Lilly with an over-the-back foul. Kayla Robinson grabs it. Pioneers lost on the road today against TCNJ, 89-73. They are one and done this season. Meanwhile, late in the first half at home, Mount Union is pounding Cairn University 41-21.
And many believe Mount Union might actually go on and win this whole thing. They are a very talented program this season.
Fecht pulls it away. You're right, the Mount Union men are having a special year, and they are definitely good enough to get it done as Lilly Edwards lays it in. Good long pass to her. She absorbs the contact and scores. So there's your update from around the Ohio Athletic Conference. Of course, Haverford playing in the Centennial, where things got a little interesting over in Baltimore this week with concerns of the coronavirus spreading. Johns Hopkins, whose men's team won the conference championship by beating Swarthmore on a buzzer beater in the conference championship game. Johns Hopkins was hosting an opening pod this weekend, and they made the announcement yesterday that they would play those games in front of no fans at all. And that had some to do with Yeshiva, which is a school in greater New York City, where one of the professors apparently at Yeshiva had tested positive for the coronavirus. And Johns Hopkins was trying to take all precautions to make sure that, they do their part for things not to spread. But anyways, just kind of a bizarre scene in Division III, and I know there were some folks that were pretty upset that nobody was able, even the parents and the families of the players were not able to be present for the tournament game at Johns Hopkins here in the opening round. Of course, Haverford knows the Blue Jays quite well over in the Centennial. That was their last loss, the last regular season game. They turned around and beat both Dixon and Gettysburg in the conference tournament to win it all. It's 48-17. That's not a typo on the scoreboard if you're just joining us. Haverford has scored 6 of 26 from the floor with 17 turnovers. The Jackets are shooting 51%. and they've scored 17 points off those Haverford giveaways. 10 to shoot, more than halfway through the third. Bettler working on Robinson. Long three, Capizzi no.
I think the Jackets will be content with letting Haverford settle for those long threes all game long.
Especially that late in the shot clock. Hughes, hot pass to Diedrich. Anna Sophia Capizzi is an exceptional basketball player, but she's having a rough night. Hensel misses the three. Capizzi is 1 for 11. Takes another long three and misses everything. Timeout on the floor. Under 4 minutes to play in the third quarter, and Haverford has not been able to tighten it up any. Jackets are outscoring the Fords 11-5 in this third quarter. Haverford has not scored more than 6 points in a quarter yet tonight. We'll step aside briefly here. Come back to Bria in just a moment. So far, a lot of the top teams around the country in the Division III Women's Basketball National Tournament are holding serve. It's been an impressive game for the Yellow Jackets here on their home floor. 48-17, Baldwin Wallace out front of Haverford. Other teams in the lower right quadrant that have already won their games today include Loris, Wisconsin Oshkosh, Chicago, and Illinois Wesleyan. They will all play tomorrow. Yellow Jackets look like they could be joining Chicago on the floor tomorrow night. Here's Hensel. Hughes with 8 to shoot. Casey with the left hand, missed it. Good rebound for Kayla Robinson. Number 1 team in the country, the only remaining unbeaten team in D3 women's basketball is in the Yellow Jackets quadrant. And that's the Flying Dutch from Hope College up in Holland, Michigan. And they lead Grove City 20-8 halfway through the second quarter. The winner of that game will play Illinois Wesleyan. Wisconsin Oshkosh will play either Bethel or Bethany Lutheran. That game is at Bethel, which is in Minnesota. And Loris will play either DePauw or Webster. DePauw is outstanding, 27-1 this year. And they have a 14-point lead early third quarter over Webster. Hughes for 3 in the left corner. And it rattles away.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. I mean, Hope is a great team, but you know there are several other teams around in that same quadrant as Hope that could give them a run for their money, and we'll see what happens. And if Hope doesn't get upset, but I mean, there's a lot of good teams in these Yellow Jackets down the floor, as well as Chicago. There's a lot of good programs in that area.
And the Yellow Jackets certainly think they could give Hope a run for their money. That one misses left. BW played Hope 2 years ago down in Florida over a Christmas break tournament. They played Hope in back-to-back games because of a team that had dropped out of the tournament. And they played Hope in a 2-point loss. As this three from the left side goes for Fecht. They lost by 2, and they turned around 2 days later to play Hope again, and they ended up losing the game by 13 because of a bad stretch in the second half of the fourth quarter. But I think they really proved to themselves they are capable playing against one of the premier teams in the country every season. That could be a potential Sweet 16 matchup if you're looking further down the bracket. If Hope gets out of their pod, Hope would play the winner of tomorrow's game here. So we'll just have to wait and see how things go. I don't want to put the cart before the horse.
And that was a good Yellow Jackets team as well, but I believe this year's team is better than the one 2 years ago that went and played Hope as well. So this is a strong Yellow Jackets team.
Yeah, that team 2 seasons ago was 15 and 11.
Right.
And obviously this group of seniors was a big part of it. They were sophomores on that team. And I mentioned earlier, all 5 of those seniors have played more than 100 games in their career. But this is a special team for BW. It's kind of remarkable. Prior to this year, the Yellow Jackets had not won an OAC tournament game. When they won the tournament this year, Riley Schill rips the nets. 54-19. Minute 30 left in the third. Capizzi. Open for 3. And unfortunately, I don't think she's playing with a lot of confidence right now. Capizzi 1 of 13 shooting it. She's hit all 5 of her free throws. 7 points. Riley Schill has it. Garrett catch and shoot. The Jackets called for the over the back foul. Hannah Fecht definitely the culprit.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think Capizzi's just been frustrated. She's been harassed. You know, she's on the offensive end. She's been having defenders up in her face the whole game. A lot of contact. So she does seem like she's been frustrated for a lot of this time.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've had the privilege of calling the Division III Women's Basketball National Championship 2 of the last 3 years. And the thing that stood out to me most watching those Final 4 in 2017 and in 2018 was the way they played defense. Amherst and Thomas More, Tufts, Bowdoin, St. Thomas, Wartburg, Christopher Newport, didn't matter. Those teams were ruthless on the defensive end,
right,
and they would score enough, but you couldn't beat them defensively. And there were some low-scoring games in those tournaments, and it wasn't because the offenses weren't very good. It was truly a defensive-first mindset. And I think the Yellow Jackets, to your point, Cole, of being a good team this year, they're showing that they are probably better on the defensive end of the floor than they are offensively, even though they're scoring some points and, better than 70 points a game.
Yeah, and defense wins championships, and for the Yellow Jackets, it won an OAC regular season championship and a tournament championship. They proved that all year, that their defense is so solid, and it creates a lot of their offense.
Blocking foul and 1. Caitlin Morris. Good job grabbing it, taking that hard step to the bucket. Morris has 6 points and cuts it to 56-23. Morris with 2 baskets. She and Furch each have scored twice from the floor. Juliana Clark is 1 of 6. Kayla Robinson 1 of 1. And Ana Sofia Capizzi is 1 for 13. She's got 9 points because she's 7 of 7 from the free throw line. Haverford's only turned it over twice in the third quarter. They've done a much better job in that respect. But they dug themselves a huge hole early on. Down 22-6 after 1. Down 37-12 at halftime. And the Jackets put 8 more points between them and the Fords after 3. It's currently 32. 6 seconds left here in this third quarter. Kara Marshall returns. I guess it's not technically after 3 yet. Andrews, Snyder, 3 to shoot. Up top, Andrews gets it. I guess it's off in time, but does not count. It was close. Now it's official. 3 quarters in the books. And Baldwin Wallace with a 56-24 lead. Haverford scored as many points in the third quarter as they did the entire first half. But it's all BW here at home with 10 minutes to play. Well, this is not the kind of night that the Centennial Conference champions had in mind. I can promise you that. Disappointing for them, the way things have gone. And there's still time to try and make amends here, but certainly recognizing how frustrating this evening's game has gone. Cole offensively, 2 baskets in the first quarter, 3 of 15 in the second quarter, and then 2 of 11 in the third. They're shooting barely 21% for the game. And it's not for a lack of good looks. They've had some open shots. They've had some looks from within a few feet of the basket. They're just not going in tonight.
Like that mid-range jumper there, you know, another that was open, just couldn't get it to fall.
Second chance. Hughes with a good pass. Kara Marshall, too much. Haverford with quite a few impact seniors on this roster. This is not the way that they hoped the NCAA tournament would go. Hannah Knoll, Maddie Gallick, Anna Sophia Capizzi, and Megan Furch, all seniors for the Fords, and perhaps playing in the final game of their careers. Bobby Morgan standing in front of the scores table with her arms folded over her chest. Her body language right now says it all. It's been a tough night. And for as challenging as it's been for the Fords, who are still competing hard, I think the story of the night is just, frankly, how well BW has played. They worked awfully hard throughout the season to earn a chance to host the NCAA tournament this year.
Right.
After going on the road and trying to take full advantage of it.
Yeah, there, Haverford getting a much-needed basket. Yellow Jackets trying to come back the other way, and we'll see. I thought Hensel was wide open there, and Edwards just missed her.
Edwards, tough basket, scores. I think she looked over to the bench. She's pulling out her jersey, and she's like, hey, guys, I need a breather here. 11 for Lilly.
Get her the breather. She's had a good night.
She's played awfully well. 11 points, 4 rebounds, some gutsy defense. That's a sloppy foul, though. That's not what she had in mind. Megan Furch scores it, and Edwards with a fatigue foul there.
Yep.
Now Diedrich comes in for her. All right, so Megan Furch looking for a three-point play, and she gets it.
Have to say for Haverford, though, they've been pretty good from the free throw line. They haven't missed a single shot from the line, 11 of 11, so that's been pretty big for them, though. I mean, at least the lid has been off of the basket from the free throw stripe.
Well, it's nice to know you can at least exhale there. Haven't missed. Good work. Hensel, great ball fake. Marshall trying to run it down, saves it, flings it into the middle of the floor. Haverford hasn't hit a 3 all game, 0 for 7. And they are 9 of 36 shooting on the night. That one's turned over, 18th Ford turnover. Well, elsewhere around the NCAA tournament, DePaul holding serve on their home floor. They lead Webster 53-27 late in the third. Looks like DePaul will probably host Loras tomorrow for a chance to go to the round of 16. That Bethany Lutheran game hasn't started yet. Wisconsin-Oshkosh took a little while to beat Edgewood, but of course they're in the central time zone as well. Illinois Wesleyan beat Berea 76-50. Hope has a 25-11 lead over Grove City, and they're at halftime. 60-29 here in Berea, and a travel on Cortland Morris. Of course, if you haven't heard yet, the Women's Basketball National Championship game and national semifinals are going to be held on a very familiar floor for the Yellow Jackets down in Bexley, the home of the Capital Crusaders, the Capitol Center in Greater Columbus. They have held the Division III National Championship Tournament once before. It was several years ago, but they actually didn't host the championship game that year because Divisions 1, 2, and 3 and the women's side all played their championship games in conjunction with one another in Indianapolis that season. Thomas More was the national champ that year, and Casey Hughes traveled with it.
Yeah, and Capitals hosted a lot of basketball tournaments there. Even the TBT,
right.
The basketball tournament over the summer had been there.
They've got an awesome facility.
Right,
it really is it's a cool facility for D3. It's a good size. As the Jackets commit a foul, it's 3 now on Casey Hughes. It's a good size so that when it's full, it feels full. It's easily accessible off the highway. I think Capitol's got a beautiful campus. And I'm certain no matter who's down there, they're going to do a great job hosting that tournament. And of course, on the women's basketball side, Dixie Jeffers, one of the all-time great coaches in D3 women's history. That was a nice little play and a good bucket. Laid in by Megan Furch. She's got 11. Easily been Haverford's best offensive option today. Fecht, Bentler, Diedrich, Garrett, and Andrews. Approaching 5 minutes left in regulation. Hannah blocked.
And as Hannah Fecht came back down the floor, she had a smile on her face, got blocked in a 30-point game. So it's one of those situations where if it was a closer game, she'd be more upset than she was now.
Well, and what I want to see from the Jackets here in the final 5 minutes, you have a hard time believing they're going to blow a 30-point lead with 5 minutes to play. I want to see how BW attacks this final 5 minutes. What kind of effort are they going to give late when the game is likely out of hand? Because sometimes that carries over from one day to the next. They know they've got less than 24 hours before they're going to have to play Chicago, who watched this entire game and knows what they're going to get in the Jackets. As we get our final media timeout, I want to see what kind of effort the Jackets give here late as they try to make a real statement on their home floor.
And the other thing that will be interesting, too, is seeing who will be out there on the floor for the final couple minutes as well. Most of the starters have been off for the last couple minutes. Hannah Fecht was the only one on. Be curious to see if she ends up getting subbed out here soon after this break. Again, giving those starters, the experienced seniors, some rest before tomorrow.
Well, it's been an awfully fun season, and no matter who plays tomorrow, I guess it's still possible Haverford could come back, but no matter who the game is tomorrow, we will have the broadcast for you, even if the Yellow Jackets are not playing. But shaping up to look like it will be Baldwin Wallace and Chicago playing for the right to go to a Sweet 16. It's the first time the Jackets have hosted this tournament since 2008. And remarkably, BW and the University of Chicago have never played each other. Two good programs, both in their respective regions, but also nationally. And they've never met on the hard court. So looks like perhaps tomorrow things might change. Chicago in the second round for the third time in 4 years. And BW lost in the second round last year, which was their first NCAA tournament appearance since 2015. Furch fouled by Diedrich.
And that's just a nice cut and a nice feed there as then Furch went up through the contact, couldn't get to go, but now gets a step to the free throw line where she's had some success tonight.
And a timeout called for by the Jackets. Coach Harrer and her staff, OAC Coaching Staff of the Year this year. 5th time Coach Harrer has won that honor. 610 wins, 223 losses in her 30 years here in Berea. We'll be back in just a second. Jackets doubling up the Haverford Forwards tonight. Baldwin Wallace 62, Haverford 31. What a night for the Yellow Jackets in front of a pretty good crowd, Cole, considering that spring break is officially underway as of today. And I know a lot of students left campus, but a lot of them stuck around, and hopefully we'll see another good crowd on hand tomorrow night.
No, it'll be also interesting to see with it being Saturday. We'll see if more people from Chicago also come out for that.
I sure would hope so. You know, the one thing to keep in mind about the University of Chicago, it is such a widely respected academic institution that they have truly a national draw for their student body, and that's reflected on their roster. They do have a few kids from the greater Chicago area, but they've got a number of players from nowhere near Chicago.
Right.
And so perhaps just being the weekend, they could travel in from wherever they are, but it's not necessarily just the routine idea of, yeah, we'll make the 5.5-hour drive from Chicago to Cleveland.
Not when you have some California people on your roster and some other things like that. You got some West Coast, as I was seeing looking down through that.
3 points for Megan Hensel. 63-33. You're trying to think about how the Yellow Jackets could fare in this tournament. They've been to the Sweet 16 at Division III 4 times, and they've made it to the Elite 8 3 times, but never to the Final Four. And this is most certainly going to be a tough group if the Jackets could win tomorrow, but I really I want to stress how good Chicago is and how well they played earlier today. That is far from a guarantee. The Maroons are also anxious for their first Sweet 16 appearance under their coaching staff in their 8th year during that tenure. Furch, blocking foul called on the Jackets. And to your point, BW is playing with 5 reserves right now. Hensel, Andrews, Bentler, Edwards, and Garrett. Now Garrett leaves the floor and Sydney Snyder is in there.
Well, and the other thing that's nice for the Yellow Jackets as well is they got to watch a little bit of that game earlier and saw what Chicago did. And Chicago is playing man through the first half, and then the second half they surprised LaRoche a little bit with the 2-3 zone. So even though LaRoche was surprised, at least BW can't really be surprised tomorrow because you've seen that Chicago can go either man or zone.
And it's turned over. Well, and certainly part of the work of playing in a tournament like this, you have to find a way to scout all 3 teams going into the weekend just in case. While you're certainly focused on the team you know you're playing, you can't start from ground zero if you win game 1, or else you're in a whole lot of trouble.
Right.
Jackets 63, Fords 36 with 3.5 minutes to play as BW continues to put the finishing touches on a memorable evening. Jackets are ranked 9th in the country. I believe it's the highest ranking in program history on the D3Hoops.com poll, which came into effect in the 1999-2000 season. Edwards, tough contest. Oh, it goes. Hannah Knoll defended it pretty well, but just barely fouled her at the end of it. And on a night where everything is going BW's way, Edwards gets an and one.
Well, it looked like Knoll even got a piece of the ball as well, and I figured that would have made it harder for Edwards to cash that in, but she hit it right in that square on the backboard and put it right down and in. That was a nice, strong finish.
Last time the Yellow Jackets won 2 games in the NCAA tournament was the 2008 NCAA tournament. And in the Sweet 16 that year, they ended up playing the Flying Dutch. Edwards missed the mid-range jumper. Lost to Hope that year, 68-48. That was a 27-3 campaign for BW. That's a season the Jackets will not soon forget. They went 27-3 in 07 and 08. They also were 27-3 during the 2000-2001 season. Jackets were in the NCAA tournament 6 years in a row from '96 to '01, and have had some continued success throughout the 2000s, but I think you can make the argument this is the best team that Coach Harrer has had probably in the last decade.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say, especially with their record and who they beat and where they're ranked at.
Snyder misses a little long. I try not to look at that so much from a ranking perspective because in some regard,
right,
that's comparative, right? It's based on how good other teams are as well, but certainly if you're a top 10 team in the country, you know you've got a heck of a squad. Meanwhile, Anna Sophia Capizzi has had a frustrating, forgetful night. She misses another one. 1 for 14 from the floor. 9 points because she's hit all 7 of her foul shots. But the Centennial Conference Player of the Year is likely closing her career on a sour note. Sets a screen there for Robinson and gets it. Now she'll raise from 3. Hits the back of the rim. The putback misses from Knoll. And it stays with Haverford. 2:03 left to play.
And it's good to see the Yellow Jackets also unload their bench and some of the younger players getting some time here in the tournament as well.
Inbounds pass. Scheibelhut got her hands on it. And BW has Emily Lyon on the floor. Mairead La Liberty, young lady from Maine. They've both checked in. Haverford almost turned it over there. Capizzi got it.
Yeah, and that's a shot that Capizzi's been looking for several times today. Just hadn't been able to get to go, oftentimes short off the side of the rim through a lot of contact, but able to get that one finally.
Jackets make one more change as Haverford empties the bench with 1.5 minutes to play. Raina Gully comes on. Lauren Howard checks in. Caroline Anderson enters. Kayla Robinson. Juliana Clark still on the floor. For the Jackets, they made one more change. Reagan Schill out there now. Baldwin Wallace on their way to a 13th consecutive win, and you can make it 19 of their last 20. Scheibelhut, not quite.
And that was a nice bounce pass there, and Scheibelhut, you saw her make one from a similar spot earlier in the game, just not able to get the friendly roll.
Well, Haverford unfortunately did themselves in the first quarter with 10 first quarter turnovers as Kayla Robinson scores. They've only had 10 turnovers the rest of the game since then, but 15 in the first half, and the Jackets made an early quick statement as Mackenzie Lyon puts it home. Excuse me, Emily Lyon, not Mackenzie Lyon. Mackenzie Hance is still over on the bench. Final 30 seconds. Forwards miss a 3, and a foul whistled on La Liberty. So Baldwin Wallace going to improve their record this season to 27-2. And a date tomorrow night with the Maroons. That is going to be a heck of a game.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a good game, and you know, we talked a little bit about the Chicago game earlier, but I mean, it was one of those where it was close earlier on, not as much defense, scoring. I mean, Chicago came out and they just really improved on the defensive end and forced LaRoche into hoisting up some shots. So Chicago definitely played a tough schedule, as we mentioned earlier, so it's going to be interesting between the Yellow Jackets and Chicago. I'm looking forward to it.
Clark with the steal. Shot clock is off. It's thrown to Anderson's feet. She kicks it out of bounds. Other Great Lakes teams have played well today. Trine beat Benedictine. Hope is handling Grove City with little issues. Same story, DePaul against Webster. Baldwin Wallace Yellow Jackets. What a statement. Needed a buzzer beater in the first round last year, but on their home floor in 2020, BW 67, Haverford 42. And the Yellow Jackets are moving on to the round of 32 at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. They will host the University of Chicago. Baldwin Wallace with a great defensive performance. Offensively, the fourth quarter, they pulled off a little bit, but certainly handled Haverford early in the game. They gave up 12 points in the first half. Haverford, with a better fourth quarter offensively, made some of their full game numbers a little bit better. But the Fords end their season in disappointing fashion with a final record of 23-5. Baldwin Wallace 27-2, and they're moving on.
Yeah, and they had an outstanding game, especially when you go off in the first quarter and you open up that gap. It's hard for another team to come back into it. It's something that the Yellow Jackets have been doing, especially down towards the last stretch of the season, and have continued to do it. So, I mean, if they can continue to put up huge numbers in the first quarter, it makes it difficult for any other team.
So the Yellow Jackets with a 67-42 victory. Good luck to BW and Chicago tomorrow, and we'll have the game for you live at 6 o'clock here in Berea. For Cole McDaniel, I'm Brendan Gulick. Good night from Baldwin Wallace, where the Yellow Jackets win in style by 25 points. Again, the final 67-42. We'll see you tomorrow night for the second round of the 2020 NCAA tournament.